Friday, July 10th here at Cape Ann. Today, Heather and I have more interviews to share with you, including a great one with Ray Pickup. He and his wife, Jordana, have started the Rockport Brewing Company. They released their first beer, Hatchet IPA, a couple weeks ago. They released their second one just this past week, and he is hoping to someday open a 10-barrel brew house at Whistlestop Mall in Rockport. Here he is with the latest on how all of that came about.
Sure. So Rockport Brewing Company was an idea between myself and my wife. I'd say we loosely started kicking around the idea in 2016, probably the end of 2016. Just sitting on Long Beach, just wondering about amenities in Rockport, stuff that we were always going to Gloucester for. Whether it was a local watering hole, restaurants, liquor stores at the time. What could we do in Rockport that isn't already there? And the first thing and only thing that really came to mind was a brewery. So we, like I said, loosely kicked around the idea in 16. It was a joke between family and friends because it seemed like it would never happen. And, 3.5, 4 years later, now we're at the point where there's some Rockport Brewing Company beer being sold in Rockport.
So, Ray, what were you, just a beer drinker, or had you been crafting stuff on your own, or how'd that start?
No, so I was always into hard alcohol, to be honest. I wasn't really a heavy beer drinker until I started making my own beer and experimenting and finding new ideas, I guess, for us. But then, market research kicked in, of course. That's what we call it, market research. When you try out new brews that you never heard of, Zwickels and all these other crazy German beers that aren't really sold in the United States. But some, home brewers may have kicked it around. So after we joined the homebrew club is really when I started being exposed to, multitudes of different styles of beer besides, typical American IPAs, just ones that are always sold in the United States, American light lagers, stouts, small stuff.
And then you completely dive into researching hops and craft making, et cetera, and the equipment, right?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey from where we started. So we started with a 8-gallon pot, a 5-gallon plastic carboy in our driveway. And now we're basically operating a small commercial system for our homebrew setup, but it's a small commercial system that some nano breweries use. And then our bigger batches we're doing up at Riverwalk now in Newburyport. So I'm getting exposure to a 15, 30 barrel system up there as well. And it's been an incredible experience, especially when you look at our journey over the last, 3.5, 4 years, where we started on such I don't want to call it an archaic system because, there's tens of thousands of homebrewers that use these systems and make fantastic beer. But considering where we started and where we're at now, just even on our own personal system, it's, apples and oranges. And the quality speaks for it. Good equipment can be expensive, but you can't put a price tag on really good beer.
I'm sure there's a long story about that moment in 2016 when you came up with this idea and Hannah Jumper rose out of her grave and started marching around and haunting you guys everywhere you went. How did that go?
The idea, like I said, it started as a small joke. It wasn't really a serious conversation. It's just sitting on the beach, having a couple of drinks down the beach and being like, oh, let's do this. And then the idea of Hannah Jumper really didn't come out at us, or even just naming our first release after Hannah until probably about 6 months, a year ago. We just figured it was the right thing to do, not so much as a jab to her or anything, she stood for, or, any of, what followed after, July 8th, 1856, nothing really like that jumped out at us, and we didn't want to be disrespectful. So we figured naming the first one after, those events would just be a nice little kickoff for everything else that we wanted to do for naming all of our beers after that. So most of our beers will be named after things in Rockport, whether it's geographical areas, people, events, we're really trying to take an emphasis on community and, things that people can identify with our brand and with Rockport Brewing Company.
But how about making it through the red tape of Rockport after, I know the first time that was it 6 years ago, 8 years ago, that you were able to actually serve a drink in Rockport? And how has that been for you? Has it been hard? Have people been welcoming? Have they been, sort of accepting of the changes?
Yeah, so I think we've had a fantastic experience. Before we really got into the nuts and bolts of our business plan and what we really wanted to do, I just had an open conversation with Mitch. He was appointed at that point, Mitch Vieira, the town administrator. He was appointed at that position as interim. So, he was almost a little, not hesitant, but, just wasn't sure what was going to happen with his position or who was going to take over after him. He was focused on it. He was very open about things, concerns that the town may have. And I think we had a great open dialogue and a great first meeting when we first spoke about it, which I think opened the door. And then Michelle Brown was hired after that. So Michelle has been absolutely fantastic. Just being a nice little conduit between us and Mitch. Mitch has a lot of other bigger fish to fry than, speaking with us 2-3 times a week. So Michelle's been fantastic with that. And honestly, I just think the town is ready for a little bit of change. In a good way. And, we're looking to bring, family sustaining jobs to Rockport, year round jobs for a seasonal economy that is Rockport. So, I think the makers of Rockport are excited. There's a, new kid on the block kind of, and, I think it's exciting to talk about breweries and, the surrounding events that go with breweries and just everything about it. If you've ever been to one, you kind of understand. If you haven't, you should go to one and check them out. We want it to be an inviting community space for everyone, not just a selective few. So that's all right.
And so you're currently still working on these concoctions in the garage, right? Before you take them off to Riverwalk? Is that how it's happening?
So we're still working on some recipes in our test kitchen.
Yep.
So we have a lot of recipes already dialed in. I've done a little bit of brewing over the last few years, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go on our website, the ones that actually have names for the individual styles and beers, those are the ones that have been dialed in that we're very confident in. The other ones that say work in progress on our website, those are ones I'm still trying to dial in. A few of the seasonal sour series, the seasonal series in general, both sour and the regular series, both need a little bit more dialing in. We're confident in the recipes that we have on there. We want to refine them so we could put the best foot forward and the best product in a glass or a can.
And then the hope is eventually you have a brick and mortar. You're talking about a 10-barrel brew house, I think over by Whistlestop Mall somewhere.
Yep. So we've been talking with Jay Smith up at Whistlestop Mall now for a few years. That came about just because of zoning and amenities for Jay's properties. So as far as a brewery goes, you're going to have upwards of dozens of people in there, maybe at all times, maybe upwards of 100 people, depending on how big we want the tap room or outdoor space. So obviously we had to be conscious about parking, and that is one thing that Mitch brought up in our first meeting that we had, was where are you going to provide all this parking for people to come to you? And second was how much alcohol you're going to be serving for people driving back and forth. So our philosophy is to have sessionable beers so people can enjoy a couple, hang out for a couple hours, and still be well under the threshold and drive home. So we want people to visit Rockport, not only come to our brewery, but link in other businesses and have them either go for dinner, go down and shop in the galleries, go check out Bearskin Neck. So Whistlestop Mall is just the ideal location for us.
I have the kind of friends that would probably take the train from Gloucester to Rockport just to go to your brew company.
That is a option.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Whistlestop Mall has so many secret virtues that people don't recognize. And that space is just begging to be a brewery. I think it's really smart.
I think so as well. And, there are some open spaces up at Whistlestop. So we're hoping that our business will want to bring other businesses to those empty spots. And, it could be a massively vibrant area. Everyone knows how busy Bearskin Neck can be. If we can get that type of foot traffic or that type of just exposure to Whistlestop, I think it's going to be a home run for Rockport to get another area that just isn't so congested as Bearskin Neck.
Right.
Yeah, and Ray, I want to just point out a few cool features about your product too. Is that your labels are created from local artists.
Yep.
You want to talk about the labels for a second, and then the rings as well, the environmentally safe rings?
Absolutely. So we are hyper focused on using local talent to do all of our can art. You know, that's an emotional investment that we want people to make into our brand. You know, as many people as we can get to emotionally invest into it, I think the better we'll be and identify more as a community. So, you know, Rockport has always been known as an artist community, and you know, what better way to get people involved in our brand is to have them design can art for us. And the first one was done by Quinn Ramini, my brother-in-law. Quinn is a fantastic artist and sculptor. He did paint nights for years. He was the paint night guy. So if anyone's ever been to a paint night at Jalapenos or any other place in Gloucester, that's my brother-in-law, Quinn. And he designed the first can, which was Hatchet. He actually drew it on a napkin first and then went home and sketched it out, and it came out unbelievable.
It's beautiful. I love that image.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, he's really great at being able to shadow and identify and highlight certain areas to make them kind of, you know, pop on his art. And you can kind of see that with the Hatchet, whether it's the ribbon that's around the top. You know, we kicked around the idea of maybe coloring that.
No,
But
it's so great, black and white. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of going to be our brand. Is just the only thing in color is our logo. It's just a buoy that we turn into a hop, or a hop that we turn into a buoy, whatever way you want to look at it. So that's the only thing that's going to be in color in our labels. You know, we want to really focus on the artwork. Black and white has just always popped to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when we kind of went through the ideas of identifying our brand and making it pop out, black and white with the white background for our can art just made it pop on the shelves. You know, some cans could be a little crazy with the artwork and just, you know, too busy with colors and, you know, graphic artists that are unbelievable, but they're almost a little too busy. So we wanted to simplify it, make it pop out on the shelf, having the white matte background, and just having unbelievable artists work on the labels.
Mm-hmm. And the rings.
Yes, so the E6 PR rings. There are some other ring holders on the market, but I would say the E6 PR rings are definitely the most durable. They are fully compostable. They are plant-based, so technically you can eat them. I do sign a contract saying you're not supposed to eat them. They make you sign that before they ship you any, even though you purchased them. So, you know, you can throw them in the ocean. Fish will eat them, but it's not recommended to do that. Just throw them in your compost bin. You know, single-use plastic, I think, is going to be one of the things that we look back on in 50 years and say we destroyed a lot of our ocean life and a lot of our just ecosystem by having single-use plastic. So if we can do as much as we can in reducing that effect in the future, or even currently, our current situation, if we can reduce that, I think it's a home run all the way around for, you know, any industry that decides to get away from single-use plastics.
Cool. All right, and lastly, Ray, if people want to learn more about Rockport Brewing Company and where to find your brews, how can they do that?
Sure. So we're on Instagram. The handle is at Rockport Brewing Co. And the same handle on Facebook at Rockport Brewing Co. You could also check out our website, rockportbrewingcompany.com, and you know, stay in touch on our social media, comment, grab some of our beer, post it, we'll repost it. You know, we're all about sharing and all the fun.
I think that this is probably just what Rockport needs, even though Hannah Jumper is turning over in her grave, as we all know. But new jobs in Rockport, full-time jobs in Rockport that aren't seasonal, this whole experiential thing. I love the idea of people taking the train from another city to the end of the line, stopping off at our local brewery, right?
Yeah, and I think my favorite part of the story is that Ray Pickup isn't a stage name. That's his actual last name. Yeah, so cheers to everyone in Rockport, and hopefully Rockport Brewing does take off. I think it'll do really well. Our second interview was with Taylor Bradford of the Gloucester Daily Times. She talked about a whole bunch of things, including new business up at Blackburn Circle.
More new jobs.
All right, so as you guys grab your morning newspaper and your cup of coffee, the first thing that you'll read up on the first page of the Gloucester Daily Times is a story about coffee coming to Gloucester. So Cometeer Inc. is a pathfinder in extraction and cryogenic processing of coffee for retail, and they'll be coming to be the sole tenant of a former Gloucester seafood processing building over in Blackburn Circle. So this is going to potentially provide 150 new full-time jobs within the next 5 years here in Gloucester, which is a pretty big deal, especially in the time that we're in of COVID. So, but what a little bit about this company and what that they do, right? It's kind of a few different words that are being put out there. Cometeer uses cryogenic extraction, which is it's like a frozen, it kind of works on like a cold extraction. So if you think making that coffee frozen, to produce a frozen coffee concentrate packaged in individual recyclable pods that consumers can store in their freezers. Now they can either use those and insert those into a pod that they can put in something like a Keurig, or they can actually just pour it in directly into a cup of boiling water for their coffee. So it's pretty innovative. It's going to provide quite a number of jobs here in the city. So we'll really see, as they haven't started business yet, but they're looking to start up rather soon. So
very cool.
That's right. So how interesting is it sociologically to go from a fish processing plant to a coffee processing plant, right? Says something.
Right. Yeah, see how it changes here in Gloucester, and maybe caffeinate some of the fishermen who are out in the dock. So who knows? I mean, I know they get up rather early to start their days. So
good point. Yeah.
You want to talk about the YMCA, Taylor?
Yeah, so, phase 3, we are just blasting through phase 1, 2, and 3 of Governor Baker's reopening phases for the state. And so within reopening phase 3, we talk about the YMCAs and the gymnasiums that are now open. Now, people aren't necessarily rushing back to their gyms for a good reason. They're nervous. They're not sure, what the process will be, how safe that they'll be within these spaces. But I was able to actually go over to the Cape Ann Y in downtown yesterday and was able to speak with a community member who was there, and she had actually had COVID back in March. So quite a while ago, but she said that she feels extremely safe to come back to the Y. She calls herself a Y girl, and she was very excited to be able to get back in the space. And she said the process that they had to ensure her safety is something that she really respects and kind of feels very safe going into the next couple of months. So what their process is as you enter their door, the first thing you see is these blue tapes on the ground, and you have to, before you even come into the doors, you have to set up a reservation online or by phone to reserve your spot for about 75 minutes. You come in masked, and then you kind of check in, and then you have full reign of the Y. So it's not like you're signing up for using one piece of equipment. You're allowed to kind of continue what you would have done pre-COVID in the YMCA. But when you approach a machine or a different things that you can use to work out, things are going to look a lot different. There's about plexiglass in between some of the machines, and as you go, they're doing something called green means clean, which is you walk up to a machine, there's a green sticker there, you walk onto the machine, you wash it down, you use the machine, you wash it down again. Once you finish, you take the green sticker off, and then you walk away, and that indicates to the staff members at the Y that machine had been used, and so then they come and they clean it. And when I was walking around, there were so many staff members with spray bottles running around, like cheering each other on and cleaning down and just making sure everything was really, really up to date and as hygienic as possible. So there are things that are closed, like the pool as of now is closed. The locker rooms, you can't shower. The spinning classes, stuff like that aren't happening, but they are doing outdoor classes by the Sawyer Free Library. So if you do want to kind of engage with people other than a Zoom or online format, you can join them for their 7:15 morning workouts over at the Y. So
very nice. And I know that the Manchester Athletic Club is also reopening. Taylor, how about the Community Impact Unit?
So the Community Impact Unit has been doing a lot during COVID, trying to find out how do they really reach out to the community. As some of their goals, I had talked to them when they first started earlier this year, was really making that connection. And when we're told as a community to not in person make connections, they've been trying to go above and beyond and finding other means of doing that. And so one of that is called We've Got Your Backpack program. And what that is a backpack program in which they're stuffing backpacks with the Community Impact logo with over 50 to 70 items for people in the area who are experiencing homelessness. So that includes anywhere from sunscreen, lip balm, water, Gatorade, food. They have Dunkin' Donuts gift cards. If they need Narcan, they can grab that. They have bags that are specific with feminine hygiene products for women. But the list goes on and on and on and on. There's food in there. And I was talking to Lieutenant Jeremiah Castro yesterday, and he was talking about a little bit that, they have pickup times for these backpacks. So there'll be a pickup time on Saturday, and they'll try to do 4 stages. But if someone needs a backpack, they're not going to restrict them to those times. So people can go in and they say, hey, I need a backpack. And this way, it's also an opportunity for him and Tito Rodriguez to be able to connect with the community. And so what they're doing is that you can go to their area at Browns Mall and wait outside, and they will come out and they'll take one person in at a time. And that also gives them an opportunity to kind of have that conversation that they might not otherwise be able to have if people are in a line kind of being congested. So they're really looking at it more than an opportunity to give out backpacks, but to connect with people, touch base, see how they're doing, kind of see if there's any other follow-ups that they need other than these backpacks.
That's a great program and a great idea. My only question is, do you think there's any stigma attached to having the backpack? Is that a concern? You know, it CIU on it. Any thoughts about that?
I don't know. I think it really depends on people's perspective on the community impact unit, right? I think that's the big thing, is what the community's perspective is on, then that's the perspective and persona that we'll have around the backpacks. Again, they're quite a new unit to the police department. So I guess we have to wait a couple months to really see kind of, you call it a stigma, what that could look like, positive, negative, I don't know. But as of right now, and the people that I have spoken with has all been quite positive. But again, we can follow up down the line and see what people's thoughts are about the backpacks and, how many that they've been able to provide. So they have about $13,000 in grant money for these backpacks. So we'll see, how long these backpacks last and how the community responds to it.
Well, I think it's a great idea, a really wonderful idea. That was the only little piece that I thought, if someone is, carrying the backpack around, is that like a declaration of homelessness? You know what I mean? But in general, I think it's a wonderful idea. I really do. And that community impact unit is just doing a great job of sort of penetrating into these places in the community that need support.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Taylor, we're all ringing the bell and flashing red lights for Mike Ciporini.
Yeah, Mike Ciporini, if you see him in town, as I sat down with him out Cafe Cecilia just a few days ago, wish him congratulatory on retiring from 21 years in the fire department. As we sat outside Cafe Cecilia, socially distant, people were just honking their horns, saying congratulations. He's not even officially retired yet. He has this week that he's taking vacation, but we had the opportunity to talk a little bit about his time on the fire department's team and what that meant, but also kind of so much more of what his life has been about, which from my perspective of hearing his story is really about travel and community. He did a 20-year career in the military and traveled all over. Was a competitive bodybuilder in Germany during his time in the military, and then came back to Gloucester, where he was born and bred in Riverdale, and decided to join the fire department and got a job as a pizza delivery man in order to learn the streets for his job as a firefighter. And so 21 years later, he's been putting out fires here in the community, really seeing how the community has stepped up whenever, these hard things happen, and really seeing how people care for both him and his team, but then also each other when he sees people in the highest of highs and lowest of lows during these times of hardship. So he has spoken of his retirement, of where he wants to travel, all things considered with COVID, both locally and abroad if he can, working on his house. And he even told me, even just having that cup of coffee in the morning on his porch, he'd love that too. So I'm sure people will still see him around town, but not necessarily clad in that uniform that people probably recognize him in.
Well, cheers to Chip and Taylor. We'll see you next week.
All right. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you. Take care. I know so many people who are really happy that the YMCA is open again. So, that's phase 3. Bring it on, right?
Yeah, I think the gyms are going to be the cleanest places on the planet, other than hospitals around here. Yeah, they've got everybody in Ghostbuster uniforms zapping whatever's flying around. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I have to send a personal little message to Mike Ciporini and his wife Jill. Congratulations. Their kids went to preschool with my daughter. We used to talk about him being a firefighter way back then. Congratulations on a great career.
Yep, I have happily been to his bar before, and and Mike's a great guy. Great stories all around from Taylor this week. Thanks to you all for watching Cape-Ann today all week long. That puts a bow on it. We will see you after the weekend with Erica Brown of the Manchester Cricket and Ken Reel of the Cape-Ann Chamber of Commerce. Heather, have a good one. We'll see you Monday.